So what are these superglobals? Well, we're actually going to see a few of them. So we've seen post, and we'll continue using that. There's an analog for get requests, $_get. There's going to be another one for something called cookies, which we'll talk briefly about this week, and we'll see in more detail probably next. There's $server, which actually stores some boring information, but some interesting information too, like the user's IP address and the browser that they're using. So if you actually want to get a sense of who your users are or verify that they're in harvard.edu's IP address range, you can use tricks like that. And then the most magical one, I dare say, is $session. Recall that when you visit a web page on the internet, even something simple like this. Actually, let's go to CS50, let's say cs50.net/lectures, and I hit enter, and it proceeds very slowly to connect. There we go. Come on. Service, network. This is the trick if you guys have experienced this too, where your network connection kind of dies. Sudo service network restart. There we go. So notice, this is actually perfect. Notice how long it's taking, right? And notice that there's the spinning icon in the top of the page there. And in just a moment, we'll see the results. But let's simulate the results. And then at some point, the spinning thing stops, right? So this is actually an important visual detail. When that progress bar stops, the end result is, of course, that the web page has finished loading. So let's pick a apparently more reliable website. And it's just my, oh, maybe it's in here. All right, let's pretend google.com just came up. And the spinning thing stopped. So the takeaway here, and the only message I'm trying to communicate, is that HTTP is what we'll call stateless. As soon as a web page finishes loading, that means that all of the HTML, all of the GIFs and JPEGs, all of the audio, all of the flash files, whatever composes the page, has finished downloading. So the little spinning wheel, whatever your browser is, stops. And the browser at that point has stopped talking to the server. This is in contrast to things like an instant messaging program like GChat, which obviously maintains a constant connection somehow so that you keep getting instant messages again and again. And even Facebook is very Latin with something called JavaScript and AJAX, so that even when your little spinning icon stops on Facebook.com, turns out behind the scenes more and more HTTP requests are being made so that you can get these little flashes on your screen like someone likes your photo or someone has commented. But in traditional web pages, such as the ones we're writing thus far, once that spinning icon stops, that's it. You're no longer talking to the server. So that begs the question, how do you possibly implement something like say a shopping cart on Amazon.com, whereby I might go to a page of a book, I might click submit to add something to my cart, and then that's it. It's as though I've disconnected from the server on Amazon because my little icon stopped spinning. And yet I can somehow click to another page and keep adding things to my shopping cart, even though I don't have this persistent connection to the server. So the means by which that can be implemented in PHP is by storing inside of this special variable called $_session anything that you want to persist even across page loads. So in short, you can think of $_session as a shopping cart. And we might not actually store products in it, but for problem set 7, we're going to store at least one thing, the ID of the user who's logged in, so that you don't have to, on every page the user visits for CS50 Finance, you don't have to ask him or her, are you logged in? Are you logged in? Are you logged in? You can answer that question yourself by storing those answers in this shopping cart of sorts. And that's implemented by way of something called cookies. But we'll see how we get there with these next examples. So let's open up a little something more sophisticated, frosh.ims 1.php. The form is identical except for this here. This one's going to submit to register1.php. So let's see what register1 does that register 0 did not. Well, this is what we did see on Wednesday. So we have these conditions at the top. And notice all this stuff, even though most of this is comments, notice we've got open bracket question mark. So that means here comes some PHP code. These are just comments. So that's as though they're not even there. This is a comment too. So that doesn't really do anything. But these several lines of an if condition do work some magic. So if the empty function returns true, when passed the name field in the post associative array, then I'm going to apparently execute the code inside of these curly braces, which have what effect? Well, This is the way in web programming to send the user to another page. You've probably seen this before. You go to some website, but it redirects you to some other page, either because the page has moved or they want you to log in. That is because you can make the browser say, there's nothing here. Instead, go to this location, specifically this URL. So this one-liner is just my way of saying, you know what? If the user didn't give me a name or their gender or their dorm, forget it. Redirect them back to froshims1.php so that they can presumably fill in those blanks. And there's multiple ways to do this, but realize the empty function is a pretty neat and simple way of checking the value inside of one of these associative arrays, in this case name, then gender, then dorm. And now down here, notice that this HTML is only displayed to the user, is only sent to the browser in what circumstances, apparently? Logically, when is that highlighted HTML actually sent to the user? Oh, sorry? Exactly. If all those initial things are false, in other words, the user has given me their name and has given me their gender and has given me their dorm, then obviously, just logically, this if condition is not going to have its lines executed. So we keep going, keep going. PHP gets here and says, oh, that's it for PHP. And even though we're commingling PHP and HTML, what web servers will do is as soon as it sees raw HTML, it's just going to send it to the browser as though this were a .html file. So we're obviously not doing anything of interest now with this data. Let's at least provide the user with some more feedback. So let's go into froshims2. This 2 is identical except for this one change. So froshims2 is going to submit to register2. So let's go ahead and focus on register2. And we now see this, a little more dynamism. Notice that I don't have to have my PHP code all the way at the top of the file. Rather, I can commingle it here, especially for something so simple. So notice here, no matter what this time, I'm going to spit out this HTML doc type and the HTML element and head and title and close the head and open the body. And then I'm going to commingle, again, some HTML and PHP. So this puts me into PHP mode. And I'm asking the question, if the name is empty or gender is empty or dorm is empty, then notice the colon. C did not have this syntax, but PHP does. The colon means even though this question mark close brace is there, go ahead and execute anything below this line because this condition was apparently just true. So in this case, I'm apparently literally going to send the string to the user. You must provide your name, gender, and dorm. Go back. And now notice I'm using the anchor tag so that this time I'm not sort of presumptuously redirecting them. I'm instead giving them an error message and then giving them a link with which to go back to the previous screen to fix this problem. Before, I didn't even explain it. Else, if that's not the case, notice the other colon here. I just tell the user you're registered. Well, not really. Not really, because I'm clearly not doing anything with their form submission just yet. And then notice this new syntax, endif. It is indeed one word. C did not have this, but PHP did. So let's see what the end result here is. Let me go into froshims2 on localhost in John Harbord's account. And this is froshims2. Let me go ahead and I'll just give you my name. That's all you need. Register. Oh, I broke it. OK, line 20. So here's an example of how to debug PHP code. Much like GCC spits out error messages, this is actually a little more clear. There's some kind of syntax error. It expected a colon on line 20. So let's see where I screwed up. This is line 20 here. And I left off a close parenthesis there. All right, so let me go back to the browser, reload. All right, so there we have it. I'm at register2.php, according to the URL, and I indeed got yelled at. So I can click go back, and now I'm back at froshims2. So this is better, but it's definitely not the best interface, because the user now has been advised what's wrong, but they still have to hit back. Hopefully, we can do a little better than this. So let me go back this time to, let's say, froshims3. Which will give us a little form like this that submits to register3. So let's continue that story in register3. And now this one's getting a little, oh, actually, we did tease you with this one here. Let's actually do something with the results. So in this case here, notice that I again have some PHP code. And if the name's not empty and gender's not empty and dorm is not empty, here was our trick for actually sending mail. So most of these fields are kind of self-explanatory, especially now that we know this is just a variable, this is just a variable, this is just a variable. What's the role of all of these dots, did we say? What's that? Yeah, put the strings together. This is the so-called concatenation operator. So this means put this string, then this string, then this string, and make one big string out of them. I could have just written the whole thing on one line, but a lot of people would argue stylistically this is a little more readable, and so I've done that here. Notice, too, in PHP, it is necessary to use double quotes around things like \n, just as was necessary in C. Here I'm using a from address of mailin@cs50.net. Here I'm calling the mail function. And so ideally, the result of filling out this form correctly should be an email sent to me at that address. Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and just redirect the user. But let's step up a little further from here. Let's go to frosh.ims 4.